What's up, duelists? Today, very special video. Super excited for this one. This is going to be a high-level replay review match. Actually, two matches from Ultimate Time Wizard winner and RBET finalist DAD100. He has sent me his RBET Rulers replays to be analyzed. And I just want to say thank you to DAD100 for, reaching out and asking me to do this. I really respect him as a player, and I've watched a lot of his games, and I think that he's a really good player who I look up to. So when he asks me for feedback, it's really cool to be able to hopefully contribute to pointing something out. So this is the list he played at RBET Rulers. We're going to be showing his two matches from RBET Rulers. Now, despite placing really well in the other two tournaments he did enter, the Ultimate Time Wizard and the RBET, like regular RBET that he had entered, getting both first and second place in those, he did go 0-2 in RBET Rulers. So we're going to be analyzing the matches, trying to see if there's anything he could do differently. That being said, his matchups were very, very difficult. His first match was up against, not Roghnach, but we'll get there, was up against Swaggr, who is currently in the top 8 of YCS Anaheim's Ultimate Time Wizard, so another very decorated player, also top 8 at RBET New York. So this was his, I believe, round 1 opponent, and then his round 2 opponent was Roghnach. So he got RBET Rulers is all just incredible players, but he got a very, very challenging bracket, and Roghnach was playing also a brand new brew. So we're going to be analyzing these replays. We're going to be trying to see if there's something he could have done differently, something he could have done to maybe give himself the edge to win in certain games. He was playing Quick Draw Amaryllis. His round 1 was up against Swaggr, who was playing Gladiator Beasts, and his round 2 was up against Roghnach, who was playing brand new Fairy Brew. So 3 really, really cool decks and two sick replays. So we'll get into it. Let's just get right into it. Let's just get right into it, boys. Let's just get right into it. So the first round is up against Roghnach. So already, what I know from this matchup is that it's pretty tough for Titanial decks. That being said, he does have some of the tools that I think really, really work well in this matchup. He has triple Miracle Fertilizer in his deck. He also has the Quick Draw into Turbo Warrior plan, which can sometimes be enough to win. There are some issues with his deck list here and there that might make it weaker to Glads, but Bot Lion is good. Jane is great against Glads. I do like his Lightsworn package of one of each of the toolbox. Card Trooper's decent against Glads. It can run over most of their guys. The only really weak cards here I see versus Glads are like DD Crow. Sometimes Dandelion can be a little bit of a liability. Stuff like Snipe Hunter can go -1 into War Chariot, so that's something you need to be careful about. And there are cards like Dust Shoot, which are not the best. You'd rather have board impact traps versus Gladiator Beast. So tough matchup. If we're looking at Swagger's deck, he's got 3 Book of Moon, so if a Titanial gets activated, it might be difficult for him to get through the Titanial normally, but he's got 3 Smashing Ground in the main as well. So 3 Smashing Ground just makes it much, much easier to deal with Titanial. He does only have 2 Chariots, so it's possible that, he just doesn't see his Chariots in a game, and that gives DAD100 the edge. So we'll see. Let's just get into the replay. We'll discuss it as the replay is going on. We have full information, but keep in mind that when these players are, seeding up to play this game, they have no information. They have no idea what's going on. Looks like Swaggr won the rock, paper, scissors, and DAD100 opened a pretty tough hand. 3 of his 6 level 8s. Quick Draw does help because it can get one of these Amaryllis in the graveyard, but it doesn't amount to much without the Dandelion in hand quite yet. Here comes set 2, set monster pass. The set monster is going to be Bestiari. Heavy Storm is going to clear both back row, Chain, Wabaku. There is at least a Mirror Force, but the issue with this Mirror Force is it can get popped by Geyseris. So if I'm DAD100 here, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to full pass. And the reason I'm going to full pass is because with the Wabaku revealed, your opponent is playing Gladiator Beasts. You know that that's happening. They have probably a Gladiator Beast in play that they wanted to get shuffled back into the deck. Something like a Marmillo potentially, or even possibly a Haplomish set here. But yeah, it's Gladiator Beast because no other deck is really playing Wabaku alongside D Prison. This is really the only deck that plays these 2 cards together. So from DAD100's perspective, you don't want to get your Mirror Force popped by Geyseris, so I'm probably just full passing the turn. You have 8,000 life points. Gladiator beasts outside of specifically Secutor can't really threaten you beyond like OTKs. You know what I mean? Like they can do like maybe 2,000-3,000 damage, but you're not going to be taking 8,000 next turn. And then you might be able to position yourself to where you could Mirror Force a potential like counter hit over like a, let's say you rip Dandelion next turn. It gives you more potential for this Mirror Force to actually activate. He does end up setting the Mirror Force. So the issue with this is that he can just set a monster in contact into Geyseris, and that's pretty much what's going to happen, I'm assuming. Yep, there's Geyseris, and that's going to pop the Mirror Force. So even though I did know the monster was Bestiari, usually Gladiator Beast has enough access to Bestiari between Test Tiger, Rescue Cat, Gladiator Proving Ground, Prisma, whatever. They usually play like somewhere between like 5 to 7 copies of Bestiari that a set monster is going to represent this Geyseris. So when you heavy storm here, I would definitely consider holding the Mirror Force, because you can take a hit or two from Glads and it's really not going to amount to much. He has no way to get pluses yet. He has no way to get back Chariot. He has no way to get back any of that stuff. And you just risk losing this Mirror Force to just too much. You really want to be in a position to where you force them to make a bad Geyseris before you set the Mirror Force. Let's say you're able to get a Titanial in play. Let's say you top deck a trade-in, and that gets you to a Miracle Fertilizer. Now you can Miracle Fertilizer out Titanial, run over one of the monsters, and then set Mirror Force, and then your Titanial's guarding the Mirror Force. So even if they Geyseris 1-for-1 trade with your Titanial, you still have the live Mirror Force. I think losing the Mirror Force here pretty much makes this hand very difficult to come back from, even if you do top deck like Dandelion or trade in into a string of things. So here comes the Geyseris pop. That's going to hit for 2,400. That being said, it's still 1-for-1. Like, you're not like too upset about this. Well, it's not 1-for-1. It's -1. But it's not the end of the world, but it is like, it's starting to slip out of your favor, basically. Because next turn he gets Heraklinos, or Heraklinos, however you want to pronounce it. And that's just going to be too difficult for this deck to overcome without specifically finding... I don't even know how you're going to come across Heraklinos here with this specific hand. It might be too difficult. Multiple back row there. Yeah, another reason, too, to save the Heavy Storm is that if you're not going to really make a play that turn, then why Heavy Storm? Why not just save the Heavy Storm until a turn where you are going to make a play? He does end up finding the Miracle Fertilizer, and this is exactly what I was talking about. He can now quick draw pitch Titanial, and then Miracle Fertilizer special summon out the Titanial. And having saved the Heavy Storm and the Mirror Force would have given him an opportunity to piece that whole turn together. So last turn, he could have just passed the turn, honestly. He could have just not Heavy Storm, not Mirror Forced, and just passed the turn. I think full pass is really not that bad. I think it's totally chill. So, yeah, I think that could have been the difference between him winning and losing this game. So, things to think about. I think there's this really interesting episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where there's a character, I think his name is King Boomy, and I think about this a lot. And then they go to King Boomy's village, and King Boomy's just like in a little cage, and at the end of the episode, you find out that King Boomy can actually like break out of the cage, and he could have broken out at any time, but he just chose not to because he wanted to wait for the right time to do it. And I think that like applies to Yu-Gi-Oh. I think he talks about like the different djinns or something like that, and he's like, neutral djinn is when you just do nothing, something like that. And I think about King Boomy in my head every single time a situation comes up like this, where it's like, I have Heavy Storm, I have Mirror Force, but am I really gonna Heavy Storm? Like, let's just say it's, because this is in the dark, right? Let's restart this match again, because I really want to restart this match and like let's take a deep dive from like an analytical standpoint, or an analytical standpoint. This is round 1 of a tournament. You have no idea what your opponent's playing. You have no idea, right? If we look at the most popular decks in Edison format, what deck is going set, right? What decks are doing this? Maybe Value Turbo, maybe Quick Draw, maybe Fairies, something with draw traps, Black Wings, it could be a set value with an Icarus attack, right? Okay, in all of those situations, right, against all of those matchups, Heavy Storming here than setting Mirror Force is pretty bad. Because let's say it's a set Raikou, right? Then they just pop your Mirror Force for free. Like, this is just not a great opening play. I think that patience here could go a long way. You have a lot of payoffs. You have 3 trade-in, 3 Miracle Fertilizer. You can always make the same exact play next turn, Heavy Storm into Mirror Force, but you could also potentially bait your opponent into committing more to the board. A set monster also is very rarely threatening. Usually, like, set monsters in Edison format don't lead to massive damage pushes outside of specifically like Gravekeeper Spy, which, to be fair, Swaggr is known for playing Gravekeepers. But even in that instance, I mean, even more argument to save Heavy Storm for potential Necro Valley. And this is factoring like everything. Maybe he's thinking about Swagger's recent performance with Blackwings. Maybe he's thinking Swagger's playing Blackwings. Maybe he's thinking a bunch of different things. Maybe that's what he's assuming it is. But I think even against Blackwings, set monster means they usually have a pretty weak hand, and they're relying on an Icarus attack to do a lot of heavy lifting. And then also early back rows could potentially be draw traps that they're waiting to use for something like a Heavy Storm. If you wait one turn versus Blackwings, they're likely not going to play into a Gores, right? But they will likely fire off any draw traps that are back there, and it'll give you a much higher value Heavy Storm on the following turn. So I think that just not using the Heavy Storm, not using the Mirror Force, and just full passing, hoping to draw something like Trade-In, Miracle Fertilizer, hell, even Dandelion, and then having the opening, creating an opening with Heavy Storm to be able to make that play is the optimal play here. And obviously, I have the gift of hindsight. I have the gift of information. My decision is not without bias, but I can tell you that that is the play that I would have made in the dark here. I would have just passed. And I think a lot more players need to maybe consider just passing here and there. Just something, food for thought, I think. Yeah. I think Heavy Storm isn't terrible. You know, you take your 2-for-1, but setting the Mirror Force is for sure. Once you see the Wabaku, you really have to think about Geyseris here. And that's what's going to happen. Okay, let's continue on with the game, not to get caught up too much with the opening plays. However, opening plays are very important. I mean, they're pretty much the deciding factor in a lot of games. I was talking about this with the World Champs recently, and in that interview, we do discuss how, like, something as simple as a misplay on the first turn of the game can create a cascade effect that puts you backfooting the entire game. And unless you have a deck full of comeback cards, and as you can see, both of the comeback cards here are already in the graveyard, it's going to be very difficult to peel this one back. Anyway, guys are just going to tag out 2 big statted monsters now. Hit play. Set. From Swagger's perspective, he just thinks his opponent's on literally could be anything. So he's making the generic play. I think this is the smart play. Just bring out the biggest stat monsters and hope to maintain board. His back row here are irrelevant. As long as they're live in any capacity, DAD100's one play is going to get stopped. So DAD100 is in a situation where if another Glad monster is present, he's going to be staring down Heraclinos. If another Glad monster isn't present, then maybe he can wait another turn before making this play. But really, what are you hoping to draw? Your Heavy Storm is already gone. Your Mirror Force is already gone. Maybe you're hoping to draw your Snipe Hunter, I guess, as a way to sort of clear back row, but we're not playing Giant Trunade in this list, despite the 3 Miracle Fertilizer. We're only playing Space Typhoon. So waiting, you know, maybe it might give you 2 plays to play through his back row, but one has 2 back row. So once again, going back to that first play, that first turn, it did really change the course of this game. Preemptive use of the sweepers is always going to be difficult. And I think this is something that a lot of players can learn by playing GOAT format. If you burn your power resources too quickly, a good player will punish the shit out of you for doing that in GOAT format. So, yeah, definitely something to think about. All right, let's see if he makes a play. He just passes now. Swaggr misclicks on the... Looks like misclicks on the play. Says I'll attack with Hoplomys. Okay, so they're gonna fix that. Attack with the Quarry, and that's gonna be able to tag out. Looks like they corrected this. Good on DAD100 for being a good sport about that. He could have just been like, nah, you clicked it, but looks like he said it within like a second of that happening. So yeah, probably makes sense too. Obviously, he wasn't gonna pass there. So he's gonna make another Laquari and just pass the turn after setting a new back row. The new draw is a second copy of Quick Draw Synchron. At this point, you just got to put your guys into play to not die. So here comes Pitch Special Quick Draw, activate Miracle, bring out Titanial, there's Bottomless, and a full pass. Interesting decisions. Yeah. That's going to be game one. And I think that that's just preemptive use of the sweepers. If I'm being honest, that's literally it. I think he just burned his sweepers too early, and that cost him the game. And this format's speeding up, so those decisions are they're gonna be really costly. Moving into game two, we do get a look at their sideboarding. Against Glads, he's got Cactus Bouncer and Cyber Dragon. I think these are both good cards against Glads. Cactus Bouncer because it's just strong, and Cyber Dragon because it's just strong. Lava Golem isn't terrible either. Neither is Prohibition. You can Prohibition name Laquari, or you can Prohibition name Bestiari, and both of those are pretty good. So Prohibition's not terrible. The extra removal spells, all of the removal traps, all 4 of them are going to be great here. Brain Control's also going to be great. So it looks like you've got 6, 8, 9, potentially 10 solid cards to bring in versus Glads. On Swagger's end, he's got Space Typhoon and Dust Tornado, which are both useful, and he's got Anti-Spell Fragrance, which is very, very good against spell-heavy combo decks like this one, where he's playing a full, 14 spell cards. So a card that could potentially shut off over a third of his opponent's deck. Very useful. Very, very useful. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into game two and see if there's anything we can notice. So my big advice for game one would be careful about how you spend your sweepers. Game two, a little bit difficult here. We've opened double level 8. Now, I'm pretty sure that in this matchup, you're probably supposed to side out one Amaryllis. It's not a very good card against Glads. So that's assuming he has 5 copies of the level 8s in his hand, and he's drawn, or in his deck, and he's drawn 2 of them. It's kind of par of the course, roughly. He does draw into the Cactus Bouncer, so it looks like he does play it. I think the best play here is actually to normal summon Cactus Bouncer. Okay, so he's going to normal summon Jane. If he sided out Dandelion, I can understand this, but I actually like to hold the Jane. Because if you mill Dandelion here, you give your opponent opportunities to tag, which fucks up your bag, like, seriously. So that could potentially have cost him the game. That, and I think Jane is a better card than Cactus Bouncer. So you want to force him to deal with the Cactus Bouncer and then deploy the Jane later. The issue is, like, if he has something like Book of Moon to get over the Jane, and then he tags into a strong Laquari, now Cactus Bouncer doesn't get over it, whereas Jane would have been able to trade. That being said, milling does turn on his Miracle Fertilizer, and he did happen to mill a good target for that. So it's here and there, but another thing I could have maybe discussed is, because you saw Prisma there, was he playing Prisma? Is he playing Prisma? Was he playing Prisma? What the fuck? Did he summon a Prisma on the last turn? What the fuck? Did we see a Prisma last game, or am I just tripping? Hold the fuck up. I'm trying to see if there was a Prisma on the last. This is so unprofessional. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I hope the advice makes up for me having to remember this shit. I might have the wrong deck list here. I might have the wrong deck list pulled up. Was there a Prisma? So here comes the Laquari. I'm pretty sure I saw a Prisma get summoned there. There's a Bottomless. Yeah, there is a Prisma. Okay. I must have the wrong deck list for Juan here. Oh, there is one Prisma. I'm just blind. Okay, yeah. So because you saw Prisma in the last game, you know Prisma Tiger is on the table. So setting Dust Tornado before it has a target is actually, like, pretty bad. And then committing the Jane is also, like, pretty bad. So generally speaking, with, like, Threat Deployment and Edison, in these really grindy spot removal matchups, especially post board when everybody has just, like, a shitload of spot removal that's, like, targeted towards you, the best cards to deploy are your weakest cards first. Start with your pawns. See if you can get higher value trade with your weaker cards, and then your better cards like Jane and Dust Tornado are more likely to get value later on. So because he is playing Prisma, sorry, I just completely didn't even notice the Prisma on the deck list. I was fucking tweaking right now. I don't even know what's going on. But yeah, but because you saw Prisma in the last deck list, then Prisma Tiger is on the table, and that can just completely blow out your Dust Tornado before it has a target. You really want to make sure your Dust Tornado has a target before you're setting it in this matchup. It could be the difference between winning and losing. So, yeah, there's that. There's Space Typhoon, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, granted, the end phase Space Typhoon would have hit the Dust Tornado, But then maybe your Dust Tornado would have stuck around because maybe he's Space Typhooning your Miracle Fertilizer. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is the issue, is that it didn't get value. And here's the next issue, right? You've commit the Jane, and now he's going to be able to Murmillo pop Jane, tag into a strong Laquari, and your Cactus Bouncer doesn't get over it. I have not pre-watched these games. These are just things that I am thinking about as someone who's playing this matchup for the first time. I have not seen this match. So this is just like my advice, and it's kind of just coming to fruition, everything I said. This is kind of the worst case scenario. You got to prepare for the worst case scenario, because more often than not, it's going to happen to you. Like, you're talking to the guy who draws Titanial every single time, playing one Titanial. You know what I mean? Like, you got to prepare to draw Titanial. I think that, like, the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are the decks that prepare for the worst case scenarios as best as possible. And instead of the decks that try to ignore the worst case scenarios potential for happening. All right, so set, and here's that strong Laquari, and that's such a rough mistake, man, because both games, your turn one play is like costing you. He only has what, one back row here? Oh no, he has multiple back row, but Dust Tornado hitting one of them would have been super clutch, you know? Here comes Anti-Spell Fragrance, that's completely cutting off the Miracle Fertilizer. Having Dust Tornado to be able to answer that would have been huge. That being said, you do draw Raikou. Your only issue here is going to be Chariot. This Raikou is going to be very good. So set the Raikou, set the Fertilizer, pass. Yeah, I like this. Unless your goal is to Raikou pop the Anti-Spell. This is kind of a pretty good floodgate against you. So I think his goal here is he's going to try to pop Laquari. But the issue with that is, like, committing the Miracle. If he draws another Glad, then he still tags and pops your Miracle Fertilizer. So I think the plan is actually Raikou pop the Anti-Spell, because there's a high chance he just draws another Glad, right? Like, if you're seeing what's out of his deck, it's one Glad out of deck, and then 5 non-Glads out of deck. So, well, actually, I don't know. What would the statistics be? It's still probably statistically likely that he draws a non-Glad. But, I think set Raikou, set Fertilizer is only correct if you predict specifically Chariot and specifically him not top decking a Glad. But I think that is unlikely. I think that is just unlikely. So what you should do is probably just Raikou pop the Anti-Spell and hope for the Miracle Fertilizer to kind of carry. He's going to attack into the Raikou. Raikou's going to pop the Laquari. So non-Glad was drawn. Middle 3 did happen. And there's no Chariot. So this is going to work out well for him. He does have a Dust Tornado, though, so that's tough. Draw phase, he's going to Dust Tornado the Miracle Fertilizer to make sure it's not like a trade-in or something like that. And we've drawn another spell card, which is going to kind of rot here. You can commit the Cactus Bouncer if you want. It's not terrible. And that's going to be met with probably Bottomless Trap Hole. Or Deep Prison. Sorry, not Bottomless. He does have Bottomless, but he's probably going to use the Deep Prison because Deep Prison is worse against Titanial. And the issue with Cactus Bouncer being the card that gets banished here, and not Jane, for example, is that Cactus Bouncer doesn't make this DDR live, whereas Jane would have. So, yeah, just all sorts of things kind of cascading from that just opening play mistake. I think some people might not realize this, but, like, your opening is kind of everything. And, like, even in other games, like, we can learn this from other games like chess. Like, if you make mistakes in the opening, your opponent's going to beat you just because you're, like, playing the whole game down a rook or something like that. Like, if you blunder in the opening, you're going to be playing at such a huge disadvantage, and you're going to be, like, praying to get your top decks. Except in chess, you start with, what is it, like 50 pieces or some shit like that? No, it's not 50 pieces. It's 16. You start with 16 pieces, right? So, like, you lose a piece, that's fine. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, you don't start with 16 pieces. If you blunder 2 of your 6 pieces, you only have 4 pieces left to work with. And let's say 2 of those are bricks. It's not good. It's not looking good. So, set, pass, draw his Miracle, draws DDR, set both. And here comes the Glad top deck. This is definitely going to be Bestiary. And that's going to hit one randomly. And it looks like it's going to hit the DDR. So, nice dodge, but this Miracle Fertilizer is not going to resolve because there's just too much back row back here. Draw a Space Typhoon. Miracle Fertilizer gets flipped. All of this not because he hasn't popped the Anti-Spell. I mean, he's drawn, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 spell cards now that the Anti-Spell has been useful against. Botanical Lion, there's Bottomless Trap Hole, just a hard pass. Here comes attack for 15. This is going to be another tag into eQuest. eQuest is going to add back Laquari, and now the advantage is really, really starting to slip out of DAD100's favor. That being said, he does have Typhoon to clear the anti-spell, so he's not like completely lost here. If he finds Trade-In off the top, once again, really needing Trade-In to get going here. He draws into another level 8, which is just unbelievably unlucky, but it really is all stemming back to that Jane Dust Tornado. When you only have so many cards to work with, 3 cards to work with, you absolutely need to get value out of your Jane and your Dust Tornado. Like, you need to get value out of them, because they are not going to... Them trading 1-for-1 is bad for you. You need Jane to kill something by battle. You need the Dust Tornado to hit a key back row. Like, that is just what you need to happen. You really cannot afford your Dust Tornado trading with an MSD. You really cannot afford your Jane not being able to... Like, you can't really afford going minus up against a strong Laquari, that type of shit. So yeah, here comes Summon Laquari. Here comes Attack. Here comes Attack. 1800, and now you're dead on board. Bestiary targets. You got to hit the anti-spell in case you draw whatever. Here comes Rediari. And banishes the Cactus Bouncer, and both these are going to make Geyseris. The draw is going to be Torrential Tribute, and that's going to be game. He's just going to attack. And he has Trap Stun, so he could have just... yeah. Unfortunate 3 level 8s both games. I do think that you should be siding out 1 Amaryllis in this matchup, if not 2. But I really do think that there are different lines. And whether or not those lines would have been good enough to win the game, I don't know. I don't know if they would have been good enough to win the game. But I do think that they would have secured him a better position and increased his live top decks. Let's say Jane gets banished, right, by Bottomless or D-Prison. Now, Hidden Armory top deck is very good. DDR top deck is very good. Whereas if Cactus Bouncer gets banished, those cards top decked are not very good, right? So when you get the opportunity to stick your opener there should be Cactus Bouncer. Identify which card is your pawn and identify which card is your queen. I think that is something that we can learn from different games, from chess, from other stuff. That would be my advice for this match. I think game 1 was definitely winnable, especially because Heavy Storm and Mirror Force are such haymaker cards, and Swaggr really did not draw outs to those cards throughout the course of the game. So had they gotten their value and created the windows necessary for DAD100 to stick his Titanial, he probably would have won game 1. Game 2, I don't know. He did break pretty hard, but that being said, the DDR top deck could have bailed him out had the Jane lined up properly. I do think that getting the mills early is significantly less relevant against Prisma Glads than having just a 2100 monster that can take out a buffed up Laquari. And Cactus Bouncer represents the same things that Jane does in play. They both demand a spot removal out because they're both 1800, but one of them can also represent an even stronger threat later on that can help turn on some of your top decks if it gets banished. So food for thought, definitely food for thought, and definitely tough matchup. I don't think this is a good matchup at all. I actually think this is probably the worst matchup for specifically DAD100's build. I think it is a very, very challenging matchup. And especially when you don't see Trade-In in 2 games, especially when you draw triple level 8 in both games. But that's the nature of your deck, right? Like, that's the nature of your deck. So you have to really, really get the maximum value, especially in these brick hands, out of the cards that you've drawn. Let's move on to the next matchup. That's going to be up against Roghnach's Fairy deck, which is just an interesting deck in general. I'm going to take a second to talk about it and what the goal is. I think the goal is to just be like a Floodgate Fairy deck. You put a Kaiser Coliseum or a Rivalry in play, you defend it with Dark Bribe, Heralds, and then your opponent's strategy kind of folds inwards on itself. It's very difficult to aggro this deck out because of the sheer amount of battle recruiters. There's 7, as well as Marshmallow, Triple Gel and Duo, Consecrated, and Triple Arcana Force. So it's really, really hard to rush this deck down. That being said, this style of deck has not seen play before in like competitive tournaments. This is a first of its kind type of deck that Roghnach has sort of invented for RBET rulers as a way to sort of counter the strategies he expects to see. So going into this, we have to remember that we have access to this deck list. However, DAD100 does not have access to this deck list. He doesn't fully understand what this deck is trying to do initially because, like I said, I lost my train of thought. But basically, he's never seen a deck like this before. So throughout the match, his goal is going to be game 1, get as much information as possible. Game 2, adapt to the information that you saw. and try to assume the cards that are in your opponent's deck, or try to sort of glean that information through deductive reasoning. Let's go ahead and hop into that match. So this is round 2, both in loser's bracket. Round 1, very, very tough place to be, I believe. This might have been round 1. No, I think this is round 2, yeah. So DAD100 is going to lose the rock, paper, scissors again. So 0-2 rock, paper, scissors, that's always tough. Roghnach's going to set the Arcana Force the Fool, and probably a back row too, something like that. Here comes normal summon Botanical Lion and potential attack. Once again, let's just take all of the information that these players have. First off, we've got Roghnach, who is a player who historically has never entered a tournament without a frog deck. He's got the frog sleeves. His name, his first name, even resembles Frog Monarch. Like, this guy is the embodiment of frogs, right? He invented hero frogs. So DAD100 is obviously going to assume he's playing some type of frog deck, right? Right? Obviously, right? That's the only thing that makes sense, right? So, couple of decision points here. Why are we summoning the Botanical Lion at all? This doesn't make sense to me. If it's a set monster from a frog deck, it has either 2,000 defense, or it's a Treeborn frog, and it's irrelevant that it's in play. The only exception would be Swaggr. But there's nothing you have to gain by committing this bot lion. You're basically saying, I don't want this card. I'm going to start this game with 5 cards instead of 6. Because if you look at this hand, we've got Dust Shoot, and we've got Torrential. We're going to have to Torrential our own bot lion. That's it. We're just going to have to do it. He's going to sack this for a Monarch, assuming he's playing frogs, obviously. And we're going to have to Torrential our own bot lion. That's it. It's just playing into your own cards. It doesn't make sense. Now, let's say for some reason you don't know who Roghnach is. Maybe DAD100 doesn't know who Roghnach is. Maybe he doesn't follow the scene as closely. This is all hypothetical, of course. And this is just in the dark. Set monster is usually like Hamster or Raikou, right? Like that's usually what people set turn 1. It could be different things. It could be Dandelion. It could be whatever. But yeah, it's usually Hamster or Raikou. And so in that instance, you would just set your 2 chainables. So in the dark, set your 2 chainables is right. Against frogs, set your 2 chainables is right. All plays here based off of what you know. Summoning the bot lion is not correct based off of what you know. Okay, so if I'm in this situation, I'm not summoning bot lion. I'm just setting my 2 chainables, or I'm just setting Dust Shoot and passing. I'm just trying to bait my opponent to play again into my sweepers. Once again, with these style decks, you really, really, really need to encourage your opponent to play into your sweepers. You really, really, really need to be like, I have no back row. You know what I mean? That type of shit. I think just set Dust Shoot pass here, get the full information, is the optimal play. He's going to attack, and it's going to be met with Arcana Force the Fool. Now, immediately the first card he sets is Mirror Force. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but unless he's going to set all 3 back row, which he might do. He doesn't. So this Torrential is basically saying it's not going to get used this entire game. That's it. He's just saying it's not going to get used this entire game. We are going to be able to Dust Shoot here. He does have Herald of Purple Light. He might negate that. And he's going to. He's going to pitch a Superfluous Arcana Force and Herald of Purple Light to defend the information that it's in his hand, and also build up towards this Arsenal Christia. Now that this bot lion is in play, he can get locked under Kaiser Coliseum pretty hard. And that's what's going to happen. He's going to activate Kaiser Coliseum, he's going to set Rivalry of Warlords, and he's going to pass the turn. DAD100 has a few ways to play out of this situation. They're not great, but they're not bad either. He needs to get this plant monster in the graveyard. I actually think DAD100's best play here is to tribute, set, quick draw, Synchron, and pass. It's either that or it's just set Torrential, pass. But what I'm thinking is his goal is going to be, or he could, yeah, Hidden Armory, pass. Either one is fine. But his goal is going to be quick draw plus mark on Arcana Force to make, what is that card? I'm thinking of a card. What is it? 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 Um, Drill Warrior or something like that. Maybe Turbo Warrior, maybe Junk Archer, something to that degree. I think that's his game plan. But because you've seen Herald of Purple Light, you can maybe assume Herald of Green Light as well. So you should always lead on your spell card before committing to the quick draw play, because Torrential with quick draw might be your only way to open up the board. Either way, draw pass is also fine. Like, just building up your resources is fine. This Torrential will eventually get you a clear board through the Kaiser Coliseum. I think really just from what I'm watching, DAD100 is playing these games very impatiently. Here comes Hidden Armory, mills Mark of the Rose, searches Mark of the Rose. So his goal here is to Hidden Armory, then pass, and then next turn tribute the bot lion, summon quick draw, and then mark the Fool. Yeah. Sets Torrential, passes the turn, sets back row. He finds Fiendish Chain. So Jane is the card that's found. The bot line needs to hit the graveyard first before you can mark. That is difficult. I cannot lie. You can't commit another monster here. Your only plays are tribute, summon, quick draw, and then pass. I honestly think that you just pass again. You don't need to... Well... I'm trying to think if, like, waiting is better. Like, what are you hoping to draw? Let's look at their lists again. This is actually a very, very difficult situation. These types of matchups are very challenging. So Kaiser Coliseum, because the bot line is in play. Once again, I think summoning the bot line there is a pretty catastrophic mistake. Not only because of the situation that ensued with Kaiser Coliseum, but just think that summoning bot lion into your own torrential is just kind of throwing your own card away for no reason. Especially when you have chainables to set into a potential Raikou. Not that Roghnach's ever going to be playing fucking Raikou, but that being said, I never thought Roghnach would play Kaiser Coliseum the Fool, so you never know, right? You never know what a player can choose to do. I mean, like, nobody has 100% principles anywhere, you know? So, yeah. If we wheel back to the mistake of summoning bot lion, let's ignore that. Let's move past it. We're at this point, right? Sack quick draw. I'm trying to think if there's a way he can force the Herald of Green with, like, Heavy Storm or something like that. What is he hoping to draw? It's literally like Storm Typhoon, Phoenix Wing. So he's got 3 solid draws. The rest of his removal is, like, monster based. I don't know how Charge Mill Dandelion works under Kaiser Coliseum. It says the cards that are, you might not be allowed to summon them. They might not be able to resolve. I'm not sure how Charge Mill Dandelion works under Kaiser Coliseum. That's like a fucking ruling nightmare. Holy shit. He just passes. I like that play from DAD100. He's just trying to build up his resources before committing too much. Draw go, draw go. Here comes DDR. Draw go, draw go. Draws Charge the Light Brigade. So he charges now, and he mills Amaryllis, and he searches Lila. Okay. So this is pretty interesting, because now the one monster you can get going is going to be the Lila. So you can also lead on Mark now, because you have a plant in the grave. So you can Mark check first before using quick draw. I like this a lot. Okay, so yeah, I like Mark first. What? Okay, so this turn, you can mark the Arcana Force, the Fool. You can take that card. You take it, and then Roghnach is probably forced into one of his back row, but then it gives you basically free reign to do all the fucking shit that you wanted to do. You can normal summon, you can special summon, quick draw, you can do anything you want to do, basically, after you mark the Fool. Maybe he's just waiting even further. I don't know. Here comes Rivalry of Warlords. Here comes Set Monster. So now 2 monsters can be put into play for DAD100 here, and passes the turn back. We find Foolish Burial. So at this point, things are getting a little bit more dicey, because Roghnach has more cards to work with. He has more potential negates in his hand. As you can see, a Herald of Orange has joined the pack of Herald of Green, plus the Christian stuff. So what needs to be done here is some serious work, right? He knows about the Mark of the Rose now. And so that's why he's commit the second monster. You may be in a camp where you have to tribute set quick draw synchron. Or you could wait till you have a plant, summon it into your own torrential. But you don't have a plant. That's the thing. You just don't have a plant. Losing the quick draw does lose your OTK potential. You could Foolish a plant, end phase bring out Amaryllis, and then torrential there. I like that. Let's see if he comes up with that play. Okay, so he's not going to do that. Interesting. Draw go again. Now the draw is Titanial. Titanial is good because it gives you a way to out two of your own monsters. At this point, you can even set Sangan if you want to, and then you can tribute set Titanial next turn to proc all sorts of things, right? So, yeah, I think like starting to formulate your OTK. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build up enough special summons to OTK your opponent through a couple of heralds, right? And that's kind of just what you're trying to do. I think the best way to do it is trying to piece together a double quick draw turn when your opponent has no monsters in play. Double quick draw and then like Miracle Fertilizer on Titanial somehow. I think that that's probably your OTK line, right? But this is definitely a set Sangan angle. End phase discard Titanial is crazy because this card is so instrumental to being able to play through these, specifically these types of floodgates. Yeah, I feel like DAD100 at this point is just tilted. I think he's just tilted because, like, there's a pretty clear path here. You have the sweeper. You can proc your own torrential. You can get the open board, and you can get the OTK turn pretty easily. You just need to stack double quick draws in your hand. You haven't milled the other quick draw yet. You can set the Sangan here. Just because you can't summon it doesn't mean you can't set it. You can set the Sangan, and then next turn you could even tribute set the Titanial, get the Sangan search for the other quick draw, and start building up for that turn where you find one Dandelion, and you're able to sort of break through all of this with quick draw Dandelion. You're going to need to, at some point, pop the Rivalry, whether with Lila or with Space Typhoon or Heavy Storm or something like that. But you know, you have to start to slog through these cards. You have to start to understand and form a game plan in real time here. And I think the best game plan is going to be the try to get that one turn and then OTK. I think that's pretty much it. Set new back row. Every new back row makes this harder and harder. The draw being trade-in is tough because that could have helped you filter with the Titanials. Some of these cards, like Jane, are just fucking useless. Probably would have been a better discard than the Titanial, honestly. Here comes Tribute Summon, Quick Draw, Synchron, and this is just blowing your win condition. And there's the Dark Bribe, so... yeah. That's tough. Draws Phoenix Wing, so... there's another card you can play. Sets. Could have attacked the set monster in case it's not a fairy to blow it up under the own rivalry, but chances are it's a fairy, right? So, yeah, just sets back row passes. Here comes Trade-In, pitch Amaryllis, going to draw 2 new cards. There's DD Crow and Titanial. The new back row is a Pot of Avarice. That looks like it's about to be live soon. Does he have the Herald of Purple? He does not. So he just has Herald of Orange, Herald of Green. So the first thing you want to do is you want to Phoenix Wing maybe the Rivalry so you can get the Lila into play. And then try to pop the Kaiser Coliseum at this point. At this point, either that or just try to pop Phoenix Wing the Rivalry, and then you can Lila try to pop the Coliseum. If he negates that, then you can go Mark of the Rose, take the Fool, Synchro into... well, you can't even Synchro because... can you Synchro from there? I think you can go down in monsters. Huh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. I'm pretty sure you could like summon Lila and then try to pop the Rivalry and then mark the Fool and then Synchro from there and then get the Drill Warrior going or something like that. Yeah. Okay, here comes Phoenix Wing on the Rivalry. So he's kind of figuring it out now. I mean, there's a lot of the game plan here that's been kind of cooked. Yeah, Jane is just useless. You should be keeping the Titanials. Titanials a way you can get tutors out of your deck with Sangin. Actually, the double tributes are really important. At this point, you can pretty much formulate that your opponent is playing a deck out deck. Like, you can pretty much know that their plan is to deck you out. I think it's pretty obvious when you see cards like Arcana Force the Fool or Kaiser Coliseum that really don't convert to much ever, outside of just buying time, that your opponent's just playing Final Countdown or some shit like that. So here comes Summon Lila. Lila's going to try to target the Kaiser. That's going to be met with Herald of Orange Light. Here comes Mark of the Rose, target the Fool. So that's going to work. He's actually not going to Herald of Green Light this. Interesting decisions. We are going to make the Drill Warrior. Now, Drill Warrior can attack directly, but it's going to be met by Fiendish Chain. There's the Fiendish Chain. Here comes Activate Pot of Avarice, but this can be met by the main deck DD Crow. That could have been... No, that can't be countered because he uses Herald of Orange. But now Rivalry of Warlords gets put into play, and all of a sudden, you're wishing you would have kept your Titanial. That, or you're... Well, you can't bring out the Amaryllis under Kaiser Coliseum, so... Yeah, this is just going to be a hard one. You're probably going to deck out at this point. Here comes Special Summon Christia. Target Herald of Purple. Bring it back. Set, and there's the Rivalry. And now you're locked under Christia. You're locked under Rivalry. You're locked under Kaiser Coliseum. And this is probably just going to be too much to come back from. Roghnach just doesn't ever need to attack. He can just deck you out from this point. This is full control, basically. And Solemn Judgment is kind of like the... What is it? The linchpin. So yeah, I think formulating the game plan and understanding what needed to go down before you started to crack through things is important. If you play Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if DAD100 plays Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But like, what'll happen sometimes in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is your opponent will put up like Appaloosa, Borreload Savage Dragon, and like, I don't know, Destiny Hero Phoenix and 4. They'll put up like 3 interrupts. And you need to have the ability to play through those 3 interrupts. This is similar in a way, but your opponent's also not pressuring you the same way they do in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? So you have time to just sit there and craft a hand because your opponent's not attacking you. You can just chill out until you have the perfect hand. And so what your plan should be, the second you see this fucking Arcana Force bullshit with Kaiser Coliseum and Rivalry, immediately what your plan is like in your brain stacking a perfect hand. How do I get to my perfect hand and how do I win this game? Like, how do I get this perfect setup? And I think from DAD100's perspective, the perfect hand would have been the double quick draw Titanial OTK setup. That, or get the Sangin into play to be able to find like Raikou or some shit like that. But generally speaking, yeah, the perfect hand would have been setting up for that double quick draw turn, and then spot removal in the meantime. I think you just go next here and you understand you have enough spot removal in the post-board situation to where we'll be fine. You're just getting information about your opponent's deck at this point. That's what's happening. You're not even playing at this point. Like, this game's already over. You're just getting more information about the opponent's deck. Set. Double tribute for Titanial. That finally comes out, but here comes Solemn Judgment. That's just going to negate the Titanial because it can attack over Christia. Here comes Tribute for Tethius. Tethius is optional, so he doesn't even need to use the effect. He's kind of just doing it to close the game out, probably. Reveals, draws again, draws Dark Bribe, sets that, and dude, this is insane. Yeah, I mean, 3 more turns and the game's over. Roghnach's just doing this to flex at this point. He's flexing his max rarity misprint deck. He's trying to get double Herald of Orange, double Herald of Green, double Herald of Purple. MST on the back row, Herald of Green. He's gonna Purple Light, attacks the set monster. And yeah, that's gonna be all she wrote. Alright, moving on. Next game. So, from DAD100, Dust Tornado, Rogeki Break, Bottomless, maybe, no, not Bottomless, but definitely Dust Tornado and Rogeki Breaks are great. Brain Control's great. Cyber Valley's great because it can clear your own monsters. Lava Golem's actually great because it kills your opponent. Cyber Dragon's great because any sort of tribute monster is going to be good against you, or good for you. And actually, Cactus Monster's pretty good because it clears Nova Summoners and doesn't allow him to special summon. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 8 cards. And then if you want to bring in Prohibition and name one of his floodgates, could be pretty useful. Prohibition, fun fact, can also name the Heralds to give you a way to play through certain heralds. Let's say you're afraid of Herald of Green Light. You can go Prohibition, name Herald of Green Light, and then use that as an opportunity to resolve your Heavy Storm through Herald of Green Light. So it is one of the few ways you can interact with hand traps. So I think there's at least 9 cards here that you could probably bring in. And then there's quite a few cards here that you could take out, honestly, like Mirror Force, for example. Mirror Force is never resolving against someone who's never attacking you. A couple other cards. Jane. Jane really doesn't do anything. You don't actually really want to be milling that much against this deck. Amaryllis. Trade-in even. These are the cards that could come out. Your goal in this matchup is to play the Control Mirror. You're trying to control the board, get that opening for your OTK, and then go for it. You're playing kind of the stall till you get your OTK pieces. Your opponent's playing stall till they get the full lock with Christia. So your goal is to build that OTK hand with the double quick draw, and whether it's Lone Fire to Titanium, Miracle Fertilizer, something like that, and then get that full 8,000 in the one turn you've opened up the back row. And your opponent's goal is going to be to prevent that from happening, whether that's with like the Heralds, the Dark Bribes, the whatever, the Kaiser Coliseums, who fucking knows. But clearly you've seen your opponent's entire deck. You know exactly what they're trying to do. And so at this point in sideboarding, you can build in your brain the exact thing you need to do to counteract that. How do I overload these 2-for-1s? Dark Bribe's a 2-for-1. Herald of Orange Lights are 2-for-1. So every single 2-for-1 you force is favorable for you. So how do you overload those? How do you put your opponent in a situation where they either can't continue to support that or they can't defend it? Let's say you have Cactus Bouncer plus a plant and they're trying to defend with Recruiters, and you've got like Prohibition on Arcana Force or something like that. Like that is another way you could set up wins for yourself. So just design the win for yourself and then side out the cards that don't contribute to that and side in the cards that do. Sangan's going to contribute. Cards like Card Trooper, probably not. Cards like Jane, probably not. Cards like Botanical Lion even. Botanical Lion is fine because it's a plant. It turns on Cactus Bouncer. Might be worth keeping. So these are all just like food for thought type shit. How you want to sideboard in these types of matchups really just depends on how much of their deck you know. And at this point, you know his entire deck, so you can just formulate your game plan based off of that. Looking at the hand we have in front of us, DAD100 has opened up with double Lone Fire, Dandelion, and Sangan. So Sangan can get you to your quick draw, which is part of your big kill. Lone Fire can get you into Titanial, which is decent. It doesn't really... I mean, putting a Titanial into play here doesn't really do anything. And actually, you kind of do want to draw your Titanial so you contribute the Sangan. So what I think the best play is actually is to... Maybe in this matchup, Lone Fire is bad. That's crazy. I mean, it's not like... I'm like trying to think about like what is bad in this matchup. And it's like summoning a vanilla monster. You want spot removal and speed. Those are the only things you want. And the ability to tutor with like Sangan. I guess Lone Fire Blossom is decent. Maybe this hand starts with Hidden Armory. That's pretty funny. Nah, it has to be... I really don't like going into Titanial. If you have Bot Lion still in the deck, you might go Lone Fire Blossom into Bot Lion in defense. Give him no opportunity to crash his Recruiters. I think that might be the play, because you want to draw Titanial, so you have a way to out your own Sangan to search quick draw. Yeah, I think that's the play. This is a fucking hard matchup, by the way. Honestly, like, very, very challenging game from DAD100 here. But yeah, I would probably go Lone Fire into Bot Lion in defense. And try to build up, like, set Sangan and then tribute set Titanial when we do eventually draw it. Yeah, putting the Titanial in defense is smart, so he can't crash the Recruiters and drop Christia. Here comes set monster, set 2 back row pass. He does end up drawing the Titanial, which is nice for him. He can now set the Sangan and start to build up to that double quick draw turn. He's going to normal Lone Fire Blossom. Getting another Titanial out of the deck. I understand the desire to do this, but like anything you're attacking here is just going to get Arcana Force into play. He can go Shining Angel into Nova Summoner into Arcana Force. So it's just like putting a monster into attack position here is not your game plan. Your game plan is to blow up the board and then go for double quick draw game. I mean, anything that doesn't contribute to that is just draw go. And you can pretty much just draw go until you have those pieces and force your opponent. And while it may be frustrating, I still think that is the only way you're winning this game. Trying to play this vanilla beatdown strategy is just never going to work against Arcana Force en masse. You know what I mean? He's playing like 8 copies of like Spirit Reaper. He could even crash the Nova Summoner and special summon it in defense right now if he wanted to. Looks like he's got Honest, Jelen Duo. He's got a fucking crazy hand. I can't even lie. The monster being face up is nice though. It will allow for Mark of the Rose to potentially clear the Nova Summoner. Set monster pass. Here comes Trade In pitching the Titanium. Man, I just really, really, really don't like this play. Like being able to tribute your own monsters is so important in this matchup. If he's lifting Amaryllises, then could make sense. He has enough tribute monsters to where it doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe the trade-in now makes sense. Before your opponent's found Herald of Green. If you're going to be forced to do it anyway. I don't know. I just feel like you want to save your tribute monsters to be able to out your own Sangin, basically. Here comes attacking the set monster. I like this play. Don't use the mark yet until you've seen the set monster, because you might need to take both of these at some point. So now, main phase 2, I think the best play is going to be mark, take one of them, and then tribute some of the Amaryllis. Or just set Sangin. I think set Sangin is probably the best play. The sooner you get the Sangin in play, the sooner you can start tutoring for that quick draw, and the sooner you can start setting up that OTK hand. Man, why are we setting Dandelion? That's the pitch to quick draw. I don't get it. Alright, here comes Tribute Summon Tethius. That's going to be met with Bottomless Trap Hole. There's Dark Bribe. Mark of the Rose can take the Tethius, but looks like we've got Honest being used. Oh no, he's just going to crash. Grab Shining Angel. Crash Shining Angel. Grab Raimei. This is an interesting card. It can tutor any Herald. That's going to be used to tutor the Herald of Green. That can negate the Mark of the Rose. And Pot of Avarice. So this could potentially trigger the Tethius here. Yeah, let's see how this goes. This could be really, 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 really bad for... Yeah, there's Reveal Fairy, Reveal Fairy, and Dark Bribe. Okay, so... Not terrible. You've got to play through 2 negates now. But you do need to out this Tethius immediately. Had we set the Sangin, I'm trying to think if there's anything we could have done differently. I don't know. This is rough. This is fucking rough. Tethia's resolving there a couple of times is really, really rough. Because now you're just down resources. And he's gotten so much value out of the Dark Bribe and the... Yeah. Okay, let's see. Mark of the Rose. Herald of Green is going to negate Mark of the Rose. So you're kind of forced to do that. And now you can Hidden Armory. Go for the Mark of the Rose again. I mean, you need to out this card. There's Dark Bribe. You draw into Quick Draw. Tricky. Now attacks isn't going to do it because he's got Honest, but at least you've gotten it down to the... at least the hand is down to like nothing. So attacks, and you found Quick Draw, so it's like... It's not terrible. There's Honest that's going to pop. Set Torrential here is interesting. Once again, he's used Hidden Armor. You can't normal summon, so you can't normal summon the Sangin this turn. Or normal set, sorry. The draw's going to be Herald of Purple. That's super rough because that's going to be the Torrential. Nobleman of Crossout being found is interesting, but Titanial can negate that. We'll see if that goes through. Looks like he's not going to use it because Titanial can negate it. So, smart play from Roghnach there. Sets the Jelen Duo that we do know about. So we know everything in hand but the Crossout, I believe. We might not know the Herald of Orange either. So at this point, the active Tethius is going to make this really, really, really difficult. Hold up, guys. I'm getting a call real quick. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. I'm back to what I was saying. All right, so... Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, what is the play now? If you get the Jelen Duo face up and you clear the rivalry somehow, well, you can force the Herald of Purple now by flipping Dandy and then flipping Torrential. There's 2 rivalries set. I mean, the Herald of Purple is potentially not live right now. You don't know that for sure, but I don't think it's getting better. I think you have to flip Dandy and proc Torrential. Yeah, I think that's what you have to do. Yeah, this forces this. Now, what do? You can run over the Tethius, so that's pretty good. And you can get the Duo face up. And then you can set Sangan, maybe? Yeah, getting the Duo face up is really good, too, because Amaryllis blows up Duo. Maybe because it blows up Duo, it's good to keep Amaryllis in this matchup. Set Sangan, pass. Once again, look at this card Troopers. Doing nothing, man. It just doesn't do anything in this matchup. Draws Archlord Christia, but there are 6 fairies in the grave. That being said, Duo is 2 tributes. So potentially tribute Archlord Christia, run over the Dandelion here, get 2,500 damage. It's not bad, but I think Roghnach is just going to pass. Might try to Nobleman, but there's really no reason to do that. Here comes double tribute for a normal summon Amaryllis. That's going to search for Snipe Hunter, and the Amaryllis can blow up this Duo, and all of a sudden you're just in the driver's seat here. You do get 2 tokens, which is pretty nice, not going to lie. It's going to blow up and then attack for 28, and Roghnach's going to drop to 200 here. So, was there any way he could have gotten the last 200 points of damage? I don't think there's a plant monster in the deck that you can get with 1-for-1, so... Yeah, I think that was just the only way. And then I think end phase, you bring out the Amaryllis because it represents Lethal Burn. And that's it. That should be the match. Draws Herald of Orange Light, and that's going to be that. Okay, so that's going to be game 2. It did end up working out for him. Again, that tribute summon over the Sangan play, Search Snipe Hunter, that's a strong play. I'm just surprised he's not going for it earlier. Going second here, that card Trooper's still in his hand. This card is ass in this matchup. It doesn't do anything in this matchup. Just side it out. Yeah, it really doesn't do anything. It doesn't really contribute to much. It's a machine, so it like locks you out of shit. Charge for Aaron would be really nice if he sided Aaron. Aaron is a crazy sideboard card in Amaryllis, but doesn't look like he's playing it. So, yeah, it's really good in these like recruiter-based matchups. I think Aaron actually makes the fairy matchup a little bit more dicey for the fairy player. Otherwise, you can kind of just set your recruiters, and fairies versus Amaryllis is a pretty good matchup. Not necessarily this type of fairy deck, but I'm talking more the DD Warrior Lady style fairy deck. Here comes the Lonefire Blossom. Again, leading on Lonefire. Makes sense, right? You've got Regeki Break, Pitch Phoenix. You've got the Titanial. You've got Charge of the Light Brigade now, getting the Titanial out of the deck. That's going to mill Amaryllis. So you're going to be able to get Amaryllis into play this turn. It's going to search Raikou. Probably the last target. You've probably sided out the Jane. The mills did hit a Dust Tornado and your Sangan. So, yeah, really, even though you did hit the Amaryllis, hitting 2 key cards that could potentially be bad, it might be worth siding out Charge of the Light Brigade in this matchup. Although it is a tutorable out to certain things. Because you have Regeki Break, you could potentially not attack this. But, yeah, so it's going to attack that. It's going to Arcane and Force the Fool. And because this is a special summon, it gets to flip the effect. It does get heads, though, so it's going to negate the effects that Roghnach plays that target it. So very, very fortunate for Titanial not running over Nova Summoner and then it getting tails. So winning a coin flip there for DAD100 is super important. I think not attacking there actually makes a lot more sense because you do have the Regeki Break and the Raikou to pop set monsters. You don't really want to give him the opportunity to get an untargetable fucking Fool in play because then you just fucking lose. So yeah, pass the turn back, bring out the Amaryllis. Here comes normal summon Shining Angel. That's gonna attack the Titanial. Go get another Raimei. Raimei is gonna attack Titanial, and let's just take a look at Roghnach's hand to see what he wants to search here with that. It's probably Herald of Green, I'd imagine. On declaration, he's gonna Regeki Break the Fool. So that's gonna be met with probably Herald of Purple Light. And then Raimei's going to die and search Herald of Green Light. However, he has no other fairy as of right now. He does have a Dark Bribe. So, That Kaiser Coliseum is going to be a bitch. This is where I think not having the Lila in play is bad. Because if Lila's in play, you can just keep spamming it on these cards, but he has Fiendish Kaiser Dark Bribe. That's a really hard lock to break. Fiendish can be negated by Titanial, so you got to get the Titanial in play first. You can blow up your own Amaryllis. Blowing up your own monster is even harder. Your own Titanial. Oh, that's a crazy top deck. That's a crazy fucking top deck. Okay, so you can double tribute for Amaryllis and then mark the Fool if you wanted to. I don't know if you want to do that though. It might be better just ping with the Amaryllis and then mark the Fool later and then tribute summon the Amaryllis using the Fool as the tribute. That might be better. He's going to go for the double tribute. I think maybe ping with Amaryllis is better because then you can... Yeah, now you lose your Titanial, which is really ugly. That's going to be met with Dark Bribe? No, not met with Dark Bribe. Here's Fiendish Chain on the Amaryllis. Tough. Alright. Passes the turn back. Here comes Marshmallow. Set Marshmallow, and that's going to be quite difficult. Yeah, I was thinking maybe you want to get in a position where you can tribute this the Fool. Because it coming back to you is... I mean, it's fine, I guess, but... He lost his Titanial, which would have negated the Fiendish Chain. Maybe I'm only thinking that because... Like, he could have just attacked with his own Amaryllis, pinged for 800, then passed the turn back. I know he's worried about Herald of Greenlight becoming live for his Mark of the Rose, but, like... I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like you can also out your own cards with Titanial. Like, you can tribute Titanial to negate one of your own cards, for example. If you have to clear your board for something like Lila or whatever. Or Snipe Hunter in this case. Passes back. Draws trade in, passes back. Draws Gel and Duo, passes back. Switches the Arcana Forest to attack position. Interesting choice. Huh. Because now he can brain this monster to force the Herald that he knows about. Is it worth doing this turn? I think the answer is yes. I think you want to... Well, yeah, you want to brain the Marshmallow on this turn so you can establish Snipe Hunter. He's just waiting. I think forcing the negate that turn would have been ideal, but what do I know? Passes back, draws Dust Tornado. Okay. He's stacking some stuff. Yeah, maybe he's right by waiting on the brink roll. Maybe that's just correct. Yeah, I like that. I don't hate it. You know, attack the set monster, get it face up, set the Dust Tornado, pass the turn back. Here's Christia. Jeez, that is rough. And 4 fairies. You know, this was a tough one. This was a head scratcher, man. I'm trying to think. This is a really complex game. I think that the only things that could have really been different were, like, these cards in the sideboarding, man. Like, you've got to bring in your stuff that, like, can possibly trade with this setup. Because once he gets set up, it's just really fucking rough. Chain Dust Tornado on the Dark Bribe. Not going to hit the Kaiser Coliseum. That seems interesting. I probably would have hit the Kaiser Coliseum on God, but I guess there's 3 monsters in play now, so it's like, does it really matter? It's going to be 800 ping to the Roghnach there. And that's going to blow up the Gel and Duo. And then the Arcana Force goes back to the Mark of the Rose. So, draw for turn is Miracle Fertilizer. Titanial now banished. No targets for Fertilizer. Damn, dude. Okay. Well, you don't have much time. You've got Raikou, but that, like, killing this Christia is silly because you can just bring it back. You need to put him to 5 fairies. I think what you need to do is normal summon Snipe Hunter. Huh? Doesn't this just end your turn? Dude, this just ends your turn. He's trying to bait the negate, I guess. But what if he just lets the brain resolve? Okay, he's not going to let the brain resolve. Honestly, if I'm Roghnach, I'm letting that brain resolve. Because, like, what could he have? He can't play anything under Kaiser. He has to clear both the Christia and the Marshmallow. Interesting. Okay, here comes Snipe. He's going to pitch, target Christia, and that's going to be met with Herald of Orange. Set trade into bluff, pass the turn back. Interesting. All right, so DAD100 successfully baited Roghnach into using his Heralds before he really needed to. And now he has an opportunity to win this game, I think. Losing the Snipe Hunter was maybe not optimal, but it's happening. All right, there's Hidden Armory, which can get back the Mark of the Rose later. You probably want to save that guy. This is going to be Seriko, I think. Yeah, pass back. Draws Honest, normal Shining Angel, attack the set. That's going to blow up the Christia, draw lock the opponent. You can still tribute summon the Christia, so you got to be careful of that. But man, not tributing this Arcana Force really fucked this game up. There's a lot to process here, and I'm just trying to get through the video without like taking a million years analysis on each play. But I really do think a lot of the mistakes are happening like just in the game plan processing. Like if you know your game plan, you can kind of just stick to the game plan and then force your opponent to figure it out. Against these stall decks, I mean, like most decks, when you have like Dust Tornadoes, Regeki Break, Storms, Raikos, that sort of shit, like you can build a game plan that just beats these decks. Especially with this many, like this high density of steal effects. Like you just have to make sure your steal effect is in a place where you can keep reusing it, which is the graveyard. So yeah, I mean that fucking Titanial's coming down this turn, and what can you do about it? You know? You have to go Lila Break. You have to shuffle away the Titanial, and that's just going to be impossible because he fucking drew Honest. That's fucking crazy. So, Lila attack. What? Lila Break? DDR back Titanial. Attack the Shining Angel. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so tough. Now you're Dobbs if you don't. DDR main phase 2. But you know he has Titanium. He has the guy on top of his deck, right? You're just dead on board. He just tribute summons Christia. You have to Hidden Armory for DDR. Did he side out DDR? There's no way you sided out DDR instead of Card Trooper. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'd be very tilted this game. I'd be very tilted. You know, either way, you know, he's going to have to double tribute for the Christia, or he's going to have to, like, switch the Shining Angel to defense. He's not going to be able to tribute some of the Christia that turn. Or he is going to be able to tribute it, and he has to trade with the Titanial, and it resets, but, man, at least you break the Kaiser, and then it's just a Marshmallow at the end of all that. Oh, my God, to think he could have done it if he had just... Okay, let's say he goes Lila, break Kaiser Coliseum, Hidden Armory for DDR, DDR pitch bot line, bring out Titanial, attack Shining Angel, Honest gets used, take 1400. You get to bring out your Amaryllis, both of them, in the end phase. So you're not just dead on board. You get to mill 3 new cards, potentially towards a Dandelion. You out the Kaiser Coliseum. Oh my gosh. That's a tilting game to watch. Yeah. Alright, let me see if I can sum this all up. Because I think this is a very challenging match. And this is a very tilting match. From DAD100's perspective, I would be equally tilted. I would be equally frustrated after the game. And, you know, it's fucking hard. Playing these types of matches is fucking hard. Especially, like, this is where Edison format, I think, is, like, at its hardest. when you're playing a deck that your opponent doesn't know about, and your opponent's playing a deck that you don't know about, and you're trying to real time create a strategy that beats them, that is like what Edison format is all about. And that's why Edison format is so beautiful, right? Because there's an infinite combinations of decks you can build, infinite combinations of tech cards that you can use to mix up your opponent, infinite combinations of game plans that you can create basically on the fly. And there's a lot of decision trees, I guess, with regards to the plays that you make, especially in your opening hand when you have 6 cards to work with. So, yeah, but I think my 3 pieces of advice against the Gladiator opponent, against Swaggr: save your sweepers to create windows of opportunity. Know when to play your cards and know when to just wait. Next, create a game plan in your head and stick to it. Stick to your game plan. Reverse engineer a one game. So basically, think about a game that you won, like the last game. It involved a lot of tribute summoning Titanial. It involved a lot of like taking monsters, that sort of thing. It involved a lot of equitable trades, forcing the heralds to be used, forcing the dark bribes to be used, that sort of thing. Think about the cards that were dead, Card Trooper, Jane, that type of thing. Think about the cards that don't contribute to your game plan. Side those cards out. Take them out. Bring in cards that, while maybe marginal, like Prohibition, could potentially be like actually useful, as opposed to completely dead, like Card Trooper. That sort of thing. Yeah, I just think that these are all good points to be made about these matches, and there's a lot to be learned. This was a very dense video with regards to information. How you play this game is very difficult. Control mirrors in Yu-Gi-Oh are very difficult, and I think that that's really what was happening here. Is both players are trying to fight for this position, but you need to understand the position you're fighting for. You need to understand how you're trying to get to that position, and you need to understand the win con, which is the big damage pushes, and then potentially the Amaryllis Burnout, or the big turn with double quick draw and to Titanial, that type of shit. So, yeah, just be thinking game plan. Game plan first. Always formulate a game plan. Always have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, make one immediately. That's your goal. Have a plan. Because if you have a plan, you're going to be doing better than players who are just throwing their cards on the field and just hoping that the cards work. Every single player that I know that is at a top level is really, really good at this. And I think both these players are really, really good at this. But it's possible that being surprised by something like Arcana Force the Fool, being surprised by all these new effects in the moment, and, given a bunch of other things. I mean, DAD100 lives in Germany. There's a lot of factors here. He lived in Germany, so the time zone might have been bad for this tournament. He maybe, was tilted after the loss to Gladiator Beasts and going to the loser's bracket. He maybe was tired that day. There's a million different factors. So, just having experience and being able to make plans in the moment can be the difference between winning or losing very high stakes matches like these at RBET Rulers. So, thank you again to DAD100 for sending me the replays and asking for advice and stuff. I think that there's a lot to unpack here, and I'm sure even watching this video back, I'm going to see things that I didn't see, and the comment section is going to see things and stuff. And I think that that's like part of the beauty of Edison format, is that like we can watch these matches back, and like the coverage is great, and so we were able to really learn and just get an idea of the depth of this game. It's fucking crazy deep. It's actually insane. Little things, like little things. I think I was talking to ProStorm yesterday, was it? He was talking about how one time he watched someone take 15 seconds to think about something, and because of that 15 seconds, he was able to tell the entire person's 6-card hand or something like that. It was crazy. It's just like you're able to read 6 cards off of just like one moment of thinking. So yeah, I think that that sort of thing, like every little thing matters, and you can learn everything from every little micro interaction, and every piece of knowledge gained is something worth trying, especially in your testing. And that's why we practice, and that's why we compete, and that's why we get better at this game. So yeah, good shit. Thank you again to DAD100. I hope you guys like this video. It's kind of a long one. It's kind of a dense one, but if you want to see more like this, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.